So recently, I've been thinking a lot about how in media, depending on how cool something is, I could almost see a direct tie to how good something is. And of course, this isn't a 100% statement that can be applied to every single cool thing that exists in media, but I have found that more often than not, when I'm watching a movie, TV show, playing a video game, reading a book, if something cool is happening, I'm way more interested in the scene, and it almost amplifies the already good qualities of that piece of media in my mind through how cool whatever happening is. I feel like this is something that not a lot of people think about or even discuss, because I've never really seen a review of something and then under the positives they listed cool, right? For instance, the Doom series, I think, is a series that has sold off of being cool in both the gameplay, aesthetic, and the music of the series. But when you see a review for Doom the Dark Ages, in the pros section, you don't see cool, right? Because that's the entire basis of the series, and it's something that you don't feel like you need to really say out loud. So I kind of see cool as the same as almost being organized, to where if you're watching a movie and it seems well organized for the plot, you're not really going to comment about, oh yeah, the plot had a beginning, middle, and end, and it felt organized, right? It's something that you kind of expect, and then that organization of the plot helps amplify the positives of the movie. It's kind of the same thing with cool, where you kind of just expect a movie to be cool in some way, right? Whether it's Tom Cruise hanging off of an airplane taking off, like that's cool. Or if you're watching Demon Slayer and Tanjiro's using Hinokami Kagura, like that's also really cool. It's not really something that you need to point out, but I feel like it's something that you feel the lack of a lot, because there's been so many times when I try to get into a show, I start a movie, I'm playing a video game, and it's just not sticking with me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's just because the video game is lame or the movie's lame, but I do think that that's a factor in why it's not sticking. So I want to start by looking at the video game side of things, right? Because more often than not, I'd say the cool factor in video games is usually much higher than a lot of other media, maybe other than like anime. I just feel like as a basis, it's usually over the top. And an example that pops in my head of that is the Phoenix Wright series and those kinds of games, because what you're doing on paper is very mundane and very regular, right? You're just being a lawyer and you're defending a client or you're pushing a case or whatever. But if you watch gameplay for it and you look at it, everything is so over dramatized, right? Everyone knows the classic like objection pop-up that goes on the screen. Like that stuff is cool, right? So that amplifies what's already good about the game, because I guarantee if Phoenix Wright was just sitting there and said objection regularly, right? And it was just a mundane courtroom, like that's lame. Even if the writing is just the exact same, the music's the exact same, characters are the exact same, I just feel like that game would fall levels because it'd be boring, right? And like I mentioned before, the Doom games, those are just full of cool things. The gunplay is cool, the brutal animations are cool, the music is cool, Doom Guy is cool, the setting is cool. That's a game that's selling off of being cool, right? The Doom games, even if you took out one piece of it and made the music a little bit less cool maybe, or you made Doom Guy a little nerdy, or the animations aren't as cool and brutal, that game drops a lot. Because personally, I think fundamentally those games are pretty mediocre in terms of gameplay and story, but what sells it is the atmosphere and that cool factor, right? That you can't really get that with any other game. So all of a sudden, Doom Eternal becomes like a magnificent game. And on the other side of things, if a game isn't really pushing that cool factor to you, you can really feel the absence of it. Right now I'm playing Outer Worlds 2, and the game is really good and I'm having fun with it, but there's something about it that just isn't hooking me in. And I swear part of it might be the cool factor, right? Because the atmosphere is cool, the writing's pretty good, the gunplay's whatever, right? But I haven't done anything cool yet. I'm just kind of running errands at the moment, and I'm having fun doing it, don't get me wrong. I think the game is good, but lacking that cool factor of, I'm not doing a cool secret agent double infiltration mission, I'm spreading propaganda right now, which is kind of cool, but I don't know. I just feel like that lack of coolness is kind of holding that game back from being amazing. And currently, I feel like we're almost seeing an inflation of cool things, right? And I look at Elden Ring as a good example of this, as the base game of Elden Ring has really, really good bosses, which are all really cool, right? Some of them are insanely cool. I think Mog is really cool, Malekith, Radahn, all these guys. They're really cool, great fights. And then you get to the DLC, and these fights are so over the top cool, right? You have Bale, you have Mesmer, even the final boss of version of Radahn I feel like is really cool. And their movesets are so over the top. The particle effects on your screen are so over the top. I swear, if you compare Bale gameplay to Midir gameplay, which was pretty much the best Dragon boss fight before Bale, it's a night and day difference, right? Bale has a million particle effects, a million cinematic moves. Half of the fight, you're just standing there watching him fly around shooting things at you, right? Which on paper, I would think is boring, but in the Bale fight, it's just so cool and cinematic. I don't care. I'm loving every second of it. And the cool factor has such a palpable influence on the enjoyment of these bosses, because a boss like Bellbearing Hunter from the base game, I think is an extremely well-designed boss and probably has one of the better boss movesets in all of the games, right? I just think Bellbearing Hunter's moveset is perfect to play against, and it's just very enjoyable. But you never see Bellbearing Hunter on like a top 25 list of bosses, right? Because you usually encounter him in random locations. He doesn't have his own music as far as I know, and it just feels like a side boss, right? It doesn't feel like Mesmer, where it's like, oh, there's a lot of build up to this guy's really cool. Don't get me wrong, Bellbearing Hunter is cool design wise, and his moveset's really cool, but since he's lacking the cool music, the cool arena setting, the cool story, the cool build up, he just ends up being ranked lower in my head of best bosses, despite his moveset, which is pretty much the most important part of a boss, because that's what you're actually playing, right? The moveset dictates how you can play against the boss. So despite his moveset being pretty much perfect in my eyes, he just isn't in that upper echelon of bosses, literally because he's not cool enough to be there. Now, I want to get away from the video game side of things, right? Because I feel like it's pretty blatant that video games are usually power fantasies anyway, so they usually end up being really cool, and move more towards like the visual watching side of things versus playing. So I want to look at anime, because I think anime has the biggest examples of, quote, being like carried by cool. And I think Demon Slayer is the best example of that, because Demon Slayer is pretty mediocre if you look at it outside of watching it, right? Like, the plot of Demon Slayer is kind of just whatever. The characters are kind of whatever. But Demon Slayer is probably one of, if not the most popular anime right now globally, right? I mean, the movie did incredible, and it was a good movie. But even that, when I watched that movie, it's an incomplete movie no matter how you look at it, right? Like, that really shouldn't have been a movie, in my opinion, because it didn't have a proper beginning, middle, and end and satisfying conclusion, right? But did I still enjoy the movie and was happy I went to go see it? Absolutely. Why is that? Because Demon Slayer is super cool, and it's just very enjoyable to watch. Demon Slayer's animation is also incredible, the best that I've seen out of pretty much any show. The fights are incredible, the choreography, incredible, voice acting, very good, right? The score, also very cool. All of these things play together to boost positives from Demon Slayer's plot, right? Like, it does have good parts of it, and it makes it seem way better than it actually is. And this isn't a bad thing at all. I think Demon Slayer plays to its strengths, that it's just really enjoyable to watch this swordsman fight a demon for 20 minutes and just a bunch of effects are exploding on the screen, right? Like, who doesn't like to watch that? And despite what I said before about Demon Slayer as a whole being kind of a mediocre show from a writing point of view, Demon Slayer is probably the show I go back to and rewatch the most, because I just very much enjoy watching it. It's just fun to watch. And I think it's just such a great example of, if you can make something cool and interesting enough, you can get away with having some, you know, mediocre whatevers in the background, because people are going to focus on how awesome the experience of watching that show is. And on a smaller scale, you could use coolness to sell characters that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been that enjoyable to see on the screen. For instance, Gojo from JJK is just by far the most popular character in JJK, and I think that's solely because he's cool, right? Like, he has good writing, don't get me wrong, he has good scenes, but no one's really liking him for those reasons, right? Everyone has pretty good writing in JJK for the most part, but Gojo is just so cool, right? And he just demands your attention when he's on screen because of how cool he is. So that entire character has been sold based off of how cool he is, and I think that's so awesome. Like, why would you not want cool characters in whatever media you're creating that people are gonna love just because they're cool. Another example of a character who's more so amplified by being cool rather than carried by being cool, not to say that Gojo's carried by it, but you know what I mean, is Gus from Breaking Bad, right? Gus has incredible writing, incredible scenes, and he's a fantastic villain, and it's just amplified by the fact that he is so cool when he's on screen, right? Everything he does is so cool, and it makes those positive qualities just jump out and amplify. Like I said before, when you fight a cool boss in a video game, it just makes it a much better experience to have a cool villain with all the good writing versus just like a, you know, whatever villain with all the good writing. And I know that's a grass is green statement. I just feel like no one really speaks out about how important it is for a character to be cool. But yeah, that's just something I've been thinking about recently and I want to talk about it.